Okay, welcome everyone. Sorry for starting a little bit late there, some technical difficulties. But today we're going to have a look at tmoneytrav's replays. He's got two replays playing 6th AB. So this is the deck from the first replay. Let's dive in and have a look at what he's got here. So some snipers and the Little John in A. Okay, can't really argue with that. And the better Little John in B, again, can't argue with that. They are very, very nice. The infantry tab here, not so sure about this for line infantry. Although air landing are very nice, usually I take them at double vet. Only two less squads for one extra vet on all of those squads is pretty good. And the glider crew, not a fan of, to be honest. I mean, when you can get 10 squads of double vet with the automatic rifle and the bazooka, like for 5 points more, is the four extra men in the glider crew really gonna do so much more for you than that, being 5 points cheaper? Personally, I would never take the glider crew, really. AB Paras, okay. Oxen Bucks, of course, very nice squad. Good CQC Infantry. But then B phase, again, only air landing and no CQC infantry. Could have taken the AB engineers there. Let's see. Double vet 7 is good. One vet 10 is also fine. And then the AB Paras in C, one vet. Okay, I'd say that's pretty standard. These ones are also pretty nice. They get an extra Bren, and you get the Piat instead of the anti-tank grenade. Of course, the Piat with its 50% accuracy is a bit of a gamble sometimes, but in my own experience, it hits more times than it misses. Of course, the time it misses is when you've just got one in range for a King Tiger kill, and that's when it misses. But overall, I'd say it's actually more reliable than not. So I would change quite a lot of these things, and I guess the other thing we have to bear in mind here is that this is a Vanguard deployment. So Vanguard means you're trying to focus everything kind of into the A phase. I mean, if you think about the other two income types that people usually use these days are either Maverick or Balanced. Against Maverick, you've got 200 points advantage until a few minutes into B phase, which is, in some cases it's enough, but it's not huge. If you can make it work for you, you can win, but then you've got to win really, really quickly with just a 200 points advantage, which is hard, to be honest. A lot of the time it's hard to win with Vanguard against Maverick. Against Balanced, when you get the 300 points difference in A phase, then it's a little bit more significant then. And if you build up those 300 points for some kind of big push, or you just utilize your points gradually over time through A phase, that kind of advantage is workable. Against Maverick, not so much, I would say. But if you are going for the big A phase kind of win, then why would you take weak infantry in A phase when you could take strong infantry instead? The AB Paras, okay, and the Oxenbucks, yes, great, okay, but air landing a double vet, like if we take these out, we put them in at double vet, we take the glider crew out, and we say we throw in the AB Paras instead. Along with the rifle leader now, you've got pretty strong infantry for this big A phase push that you're doing, right? And you still have a reasonable amount of them. This is like 30 infantry units, and then also the three leaders as well. I don't think air landing only in B is really, enough. So what could we take out to fix that? Of course, the three tanks, standard, HMG, okay. One of the problems with the 17 pounders for the 6 AB is you can't take them in A, only in B. And this Pack 40, while nice, is still only one gun. Bit lacking in anti-air, but on the other hand, you do have great planes. But sometimes that's not enough really to neglect, your anti-air. The Polston is okay, but it's not, anything amazing. So let's see, how about the the mosquito, the Recon mosquito, and the napalm bomber, I guess, for the cheese from deployment. Okay, you've got a fighter. You could just not take the fighter in A because this one does pretty much the same thing. It's pretty much the same plane. So you can use these Tempests with the light bombs as a fighter as well. So if you took these out, that would get you 4 points. And that's not insignificant, right? That would give you extra points to throw in infantry, so you could... I mean, I would still keep the air landing in some cases. They are nice, but they're doesn't mean you can neglect your Cqc infantry either. So if we throw those into B, then at least, if you go into B and things are taking a while to... Is this thing on? Yeah, it's on. Can you see? Alright, good. So then, at least if you go into B and you've used up your Cqc infantry in A, you've still got the engineers. Alright? It's better than nothing. I mean, you could even, if you look at the AB paras, right? If you can get by with the Oxen Bucks and let's say the Flamethrowers from the support tab here, right? We throw those in. And we say that these Flamethrowers and your Oxen Bucks, they're going to be your CQC infantry for A. I mean, this is getting to a kind of a longer strategy, right? And the reason I would look at that is because, if you're playing a plane heavy division, you get the most value out of your planes when you can keep using them. They kind of have infinite value because they're the only unit that can actually be repaired back to full health. As long as they evacuate, it doesn't matter whether they're full on black smoke everywhere, they will be repaired back to full health and you can use them again. And they can drop their bombs again. You don't need a truck to repair them or anything, so kind of planes can have a kind of infinite value, you might say, if you use them correctly. So in that case, then they become more and more and more and increasingly more valuable like the longer the game goes. So I had difficulty figuring which was the Cqc infantry. So if you want to know if something is Cqc infantry or not, you basically have to look for two things, basically. One is a special Cqc infantry weapon, okay? Those would be Flamethrowers. Okay, flamethrowers are a special CQC infantry weapon. They do extra damage against units that are in buildings, even more damage than they would do normally. They do extra damage to units that are in buildings. When they hit infantry out in the open, they force those infantry squads to move, okay? And that's important because infantry squads, when they are moving, they take more damage. So that's why it's such a good weapon to use against infantry in kind of any situation. The drawback being the very short range, only 100 meters. So you've got flamethrowers, you've got things like these anti-tank. It says anti-tank grenade, but it's not an anti-tank grenade. This is flames. It's like a Molotov cocktail, right? So it's similar to a flamethrower in that it creates flames. It causes enemy infantry units to move, except they just throw it and then they have to wait some time to reload, whereas a flamethrower can just fire a little bit, wait, fire, fire like this. For the grenades, often it's throw the grenade and then they'll be waiting maybe 5 or 6 or more seconds before they can throw another one. But with the flame grenades, they do the same thing. They make the infantry squad that they throw it at move, and then as they are moving, the infantry squads will take more damage because that's a mechanic in Steel Division 2. Any infantry that are moving will take significantly more damage, and that's why we never use the move key, and that's why we never try to move our infantry if they're under fire, because they're just gonna get wrecked. Unless, of course, you can instantly get them behind something to save them. Okay, it's worth it. But otherwise, in most situations, it's not. So they have a flame grenade, CQC infantry. These guys have a frag grenade. This is another CQC infantry weapon. And this will do a lot of damage to enemy infantry squads. I think it does 8 damage. So if you look at, for example, the air landing crew, they have strength 7. One grenade will entirely wipe out this squad poof, gone, no coming back, nothing left, that's it, done. That's why these HE shells are so good, and that's why they're so useful. If you want to win fights in forests or in towns where there's very limited range, or range is reduced to 100 meters, then the HE shells, the grenades, the Molotov cocktails, the flamethrowers, those are the weapons that are going to make your infantry win the fight versus other infantry squads that don't have those weapons. And the AB engineers too, they also have the HE shells, just like the Oxen Bucks. They look a little bit different, but they do the same thing. They explode, they do a lot of damage. So, generally you would want Cqc infantry in every phase. If you're doing a balanced deployment, let's say every single phase. If you're doing Vanguard, you could probably get away with Cqc infantry in just A and B. But in this case, like, because the whole thing of 6AB is the planes, to get some of the best planes in the game, or maybe let's just say the best planes in the game, then this kind of infinite value idea of them going back and refueling and repairing and coming out again at full health means you can get so much value out of them by using them again and again and again. Means that 6th AB is like one of the best long game divisions, and they don't work super well, I would say, in the Vanguard deployment type. Of course, you could make anything work, right? But in general, when you look at this kind of idea of the planes, you can see that it works better over a longer game than a shorter one. Okay, so that was, so we can put the engineers here and the flamethrowers here if we want. I guess we could take those out for something else. But otherwise, I would say this would be fine like this. Let's go have a look at the replay. So T-Money 1. And let's watch it from your perspective. Now this is something usually that I wouldn't do, is take an AA piece in A phase. Like, unless I know my opponent is going to be spamming a lot of planes. So those divisions that maybe have those close air support, Ju-87s with the gun pods, those can wreck your life in A phase. Yeah, it's a good idea to bring some anti-air. Now maybe you know what your opponent is bringing, or you know what division they're playing, and they are going to spam a bunch of planes. But otherwise, in most cases, I would say bringing AA right at the start in deployment, sometimes you can get no use out of it. If your opponent doesn't bring any planes, then these two Polstons that you've brought out here would effectively be a waste of points. And you can also use them as anti-infantry guns, kind of support weapons like that. But also it's hard to get good use out of them that way as well. So let's see. There's the Mosquito, the Recon Mosquito, and the Recon Napalm. I think usually you'd have to bring them out a little bit earlier for this to work, but let's see. What's this? So you see here your opponent is already bringing a bunch of tanks, I think, into the town here. So your Mosquito gets shot down by a fighter. And I think your Napalm bomber here is just a little bit too late to do that cheese effectively. I would have done it maybe over here in the town where they want to push down this road here. So let's see how effective that was. Let's see if you got anything. Yeah, just missed. No hit. And here would have been a good choice, we see. The infantry generally always come down this road because they want to deploy into the buildings around this area. And the Tempest is falling back. I don't know why that is. Might have been able to get that Cobra. So how about deployment on this right side here? Okay, anti-tank guns in the forests. reasonable position. This one, not a good position, can't see anything. This anti-air gun out in the open is liable to being killed by anything with 2 kilometer range over there if it gets spotted. Okay, an MG is fine. This AA gun as well, out in the open generally is not the best place for your support weapons. If you want to use anti-air effectively, you usually put it behind something so it can't be sniped. So if you want some anti-air coverage over here, for example, behind this forest is a reasonable position. Even in the light forest here is fine. Behind buildings in the town over here is fine. And that way, you know, it can still fire at planes overhead, but things that your enemy brings are not gonna, like, snipe it. He has the A-20Z cast plane. Who is he? Who's he playing? He's playing the 29th Tank Guards, and he's balanced. Okay. So your opponent is balanced. You want to win. Oh, generally by the minute 20. Or you want to be winning by minute 20. So we see here, the Polston isn't even really super great at its anti-air roll by itself, and this BA-20 now is giving it some issues. Now I'd say this is a poor buy. This is a very expensive plane. It's 145 points if I remember correctly. This BA-10 armored car is about 10 points. So you're spending 150 points to kill a 10-point vehicle. And the reason you're doing that is because the AA was placed in a bad position. So it's this bad positioning is now allowing your opponent to effectively kill units or pester your units with a very cheap unit, which then your only way to fix it, to try and save your badly positioned AA, is to bring out a very expensive unit. And now you've got almost no units in the town here. Ideally, you know, in the first few minutes, you want to send out cheap units of different kinds to kind of stabilize the front line and protect against all the different kinds of units that you might encounter. And the Tempest didn't even manage to make the BA-20 fall back. Didn't kill it either, but didn't even make it fall back. So now you've got this really expensive unit that's flying in a circle, didn't achieve its end. And you're going to lose this Polston now. The tanks are also coming up here. So most of the time on this kind of map, you know, this hill tends to be the central focus of a lot of battles, because if you can control the hill on either side, then you can control the reinforcement roads. Have a look. If your opponent takes this side of the hill here, they can see and shoot onto this road here. Makes it really difficult for you to get into the town. And the same on this side. If you can control this side of the hill here, then your opponent can't use these roads, can't come into the town, would have to maybe try and come in from this road here maybe, but even that's quite difficult. So this hill is a really important position, but this kind of positioning of infantry here and this kind of composition isn't gonna do the job, I would say. You know, strong infantry, it's a kind of Cqc environment. You know, you have heavy forest, you have buildings that reduce line of sight. Then you do also have some more open positions for support vehicles or, you know, standard line infantry, and a big balloon happening here. So that AA was toast from the start pretty much. And if you just bought normal reinforcements here already, you wouldn't be losing these two objectives. You wouldn't have this bubble happening. And ideally a anti-tank gun either in this forest here or this forest here, you know, also helps to protect this area from enemy tanks. I mean, two anti-tank guns here, okay, great, but it seems your opponent isn't kind of pushing this side, right? Some anti-tank guns on top of the hill in this position are also super important for both sides. This one is too aggressively placed, and now it's cut off. I just have the Raider trait, but if you press C key on it, it can't really see anything. And most of the time, you don't want anti-tank guns to be fighting in such a short range. You want them fighting at maybe 3/4, 2/3 of their optimum range for the best results. Okay, you can see your opponent has a lot of infantry reinforcements coming in here. This is too conservative here. And the glider crew, you know, they're disheartened infantry. They're not gonna really win many fights against other normal infantry squads. Okay, Tetrarch Little John, can I get the kill? Oof, track's broken. That's a nice crit. Nice little ambush here with a Little John. Oof. So the reason you get these balloons happening is because your way of playing is too weighted towards, or too weighted in like the wrong direction. Ideally, you try to find this middle ground, and you just stabilize it, and that means you have something to counter everything. So if we say that the middle line is across here, right? Then we want anti-tank guns covering this open space. Okay, good, that's done. Don't need to advance with the Little John. At this stage of the game, you're losing, right? It's better to hold back and try to consolidate the line than to push. So I would have kept this or relocated it somewhere else. You're trying to stabilize this front line, right? So that means in this case, in the town here, some infantry, maybe a tank or two for some anti-tank or anti-half-track duties. Up here, an anti-tank gun, maybe an MG as well, because it's a large open area. And then once you've kind of stabilized and you've got all that stuff, then you can start bringing in the planes to pound the positions that you find. You know, when you find an anti-tank gun somewhere that's hard for you to kill, or an anti-infantry gun somewhere that's hard for you to kill, you bring in your Tempest, you bomb it, maybe you pound away with its guns instead of just retreating it, get some more value out of it, and then you just send it back and you keep kind of repeating in this way. Keep getting the value out of your planes. Okay, now this is I think a good example of how we can use the influence line. So if you didn't know, the influence line generally works in a pretty easy way to understand, which is if you measure from your infantry or from your units. So let's take this glider crew. This is the most forward unit, okay, this glider crew, and we press the C key over it, and we measure up to the influence line here. That's a distance of about 750 meters. If we measure the same distance from here and back, 750 meters is about to the church here. So using this kind of judgment, we could say your opponent probably has units either up to the church or behind the church here, and not in this zone here. And we can do that just by measuring from our units to the line, and then the same distance back again. And let's see if that's correct. Let's check neutral. And there we go. Like, I was perfectly correct. Exactly that distance that I said it would be is where your opponent's units are. And at the moment, because you don't utilize that little trick, you're using an off-map here that's kind of going to go to waste. Like, you might get lucky with some explosion on the church here, but most of it is not going to hit where you want it to. Okay, and the Tetrarchs here, like most of the time, vehicles and tanks, they don't have good vision. And so you need to support them with infantry most of the time. If you want to send tanks down here, fine. But send an infantry squad, say, into this building here first, to at least spot and reveal things for your tanks. And then you can choose whether to engage or when to engage. So you're going out now. Your tanks, although there is an enemy tank there, your tanks can't spot it. Now they spot it. Now they start fighting. And they lose sight of it again. And the tank gets the first shot on your Tetrarchs because you're trying to engage just purely with tanks rather than supporting it with infantry. Always bring the infantry first. Always stabilize the line with cheap units first. Like this kind of spam here. You could have put a couple of infantry in here, maybe in the forest here, something in the building to spot here, maybe something at the side here to try and run up the side of the map, some more on the hill here or in the buildings here to hold the line. You just spread out all across the map instead of spamming one giant group into one area here. This would be very easy to kill with just one bomber. And you're getting transport sniped. Now your units are kind of busted out in the open, which is a bad position for them to be. Dang. What are you saying dang to? And here on this side, you've got the glider crew. They're kind of just out in the open. It's not a great position. Like, some infantry into the buildings here, into the forest here, this forest here, this forest here. Spread your units out so that you can stabilize the line. In this case here, using the move order is a big no-no. Never right click, just Q move. So in this case here, I would take one air landing, Q move over here, over here, over here, over here, over here. Maybe some even up in the forest here just to do some recon. So another bubble here. Again, this is because you're not stabilizing. You're just weighting a whole bunch of units into one thing, and then when it doesn't work, you weight a whole bunch of units into another thing, when instead you should be taking this giant pounding hammer you've got, and you should instead be trying to spread your things out more like water rather than trying to pound things in one direction all the time. Spread things out, put things in different places, and then at least if your enemy has a big push, because you have units on the left of them and units on the right of them, your opponent's units that are pushing are just going to get encircled if they push too much. And so you can relax a bit more then. You don't have this kind of panic of, oh shit, there's a giant bubble in the line, like there is here. Here, three howitzers. Again, if the line isn't stabilized, then it's probably not the best time to buy howitzers, because these are support weapons and you want them to support, but you can't support something that doesn't exist, and you want to support a stabilized front line. And if you don't have the stabilized front line, that should like always be your priority as a new player at least. And when you have much more experience, you can do all kinds of weird and funky shit, right? But when we're trying to learn the game and we don't really know how to do those things, just this general principle of cheap units for all the different things you need, spread out across the map, not all in one place, not only one kind of unit. So don't buy 5 glider crew, buy 2 glider crew, 1 MG, 1 anti-tank gun, or 1 tank, something like that, something for every occasion. And that way you'll get much better use out of the points you spend. And so once this hill is lost, if your opponent is smart, he's going to use this hill now to prevent you from coming up this road and into the town. And he's already using this part of the hill here to pound your air landing. This is another good example, I think, of why we don't just bring one kind of unit. If you bring only infantry like you did here, your opponent can counter you with one single unit like he is doing here. But if you bring 3 infantry with 1 tank and something else, then you can at least use your tank to kill the anti-infantry gun over there. And the tank you would use for that with 6 AB would be the Centauro that's in the support tab. Has a very nice 2-kilometer range HE gun. And this is also a bad idea. When you click on units to bring them out and to reinforce somewhere, click on the unit in the menu and then press Y, and then click where you want them to go. They'll go there and unload immediately. Like if they're just sat in the trucks like this, it's really easy for them to get sniped by a tank. They didn't here, but they could have. And again, the buying of planes at this stage is the wrong use of points. Okay, there's a Centaur, that's what I was talking about. That's the unit you can use to get rid of the HE gun on the hill there. Press C key and we look for a good position. You could keep it somewhere like here and still be able to get those shots off. Now to be able to see it, you would need some recon either on the hill here or alternatively in the church here. The church actually gives much greater line of sight than it shows you when you press the C key. When we press C on the church, you think, oh, that's not so great, but actually the church is a special kind of building that can see over everything, so when you put units in the church, they can see much more than what this shows you when you press the C key. Again here, just trying to push with tanks. This is not really going to get the job done. It has to be combined arms, okay? So in this case, like, you would send some infantry up here, maybe into the buildings here, into the forest here, and then you let the infantry go first. And then when your infantry spots something, you can bring the tanks in to support and shoot that thing without being at risk of losing the tanks to something like a Panzerschreck or some anti-tank infantry. Or even just an anti-tank gun that's like lying in wait for you. Now it didn't happen here, right? But it can happen. And will happen if you play against better players. Yeah, I would say the points distribution at this stage, like what is called trading, is probably quite in your opponent's favor at this stage. I don't think you have any planes left, although you have bought quite a few of them. So that's a lot of points down the drain, and your opponent has their fighters just circling overhead with impunity. Again, this is a very, very easy way to get your tanks killed by anti-tank infantry, because anti-tank infantry don't actually affect the influence line. So they could be hiding in these buildings here, and it wouldn't actually show you. Usually the influence line would at least say, okay, we know there's some units here because the influence line is kind of pushing here, right? But anti-tank infantry don't push the influence line. They could be sitting in any of these buildings, ready to ambush your tanks, and you wouldn't really know it. And that's something that good players will do to you. Again, with the air landing or the infantry and the trucks there, just make sure you press the Y key. When you click on the menu, press Y and then click on the map, they'll deploy automatically. You don't have to go over to them and click and press deploy yourself. It can save you some time, save you some unfortunate sniping. And this Centaur here as well is in a prime position to be sniped. It's all alone by itself. No support, nothing to reveal if there's anything in the buildings here. Let's check what your opponent has. Opponent does have some anti-tank infantry in the buildings here. Probably could use them to come out and kill your Centaur. Not the DP, but the SVT with the anti-tank grenades. Might be able to do it. But it's dead anyway, dead to the IS-2. Tanks need an infantry screen in real life and in game. Yeah, Blackbird Blitz is absolutely correct. Yes, this game the planes did not survive as long, really. We can see, yeah. Ideally, the way I think of it is you put the infantry first, right? You think about this glider crew. It costs 15 points. How much does the Centaur cost? 50 points. So you can afford to lose a glider crew. Like, you can send them out scouting along here, out into the open, and if something makes them go poof, boom, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's 15 points. But now you know that there's something there. Now you know where the anti-tank gun is. Now you know where the anti-air gun is, now you know where the whatever is, and you can engage it accordingly. But if every time you're just sending units forward blindly, then you're kind of asking to be ambushed, and you will get ambushed. I mean, maybe not purposely ambushed, but you know, any unit that's like hiding behind something like, say, this forest, and has this kind of limited line of sight, where it won't be revealed until you move further up into this position here. You know, it's gonna be ambushing your units and therefore getting the first shot, and therefore also probably killing your unit before you can kill it. So in this case, you took back the hill. Okay, that's fantastic. Once you take something like this, immediately start reinforcing it with infantry. It's so much harder to dig infantry out of the buildings here, because imagine your opponent sends a tank up here and sees infantry into this building. Okay, and it starts shooting them. No problem, just pop them into the next building. He falls down the road, pop them into this building. He tries to come around here, pop them into this building. And your opponent will never be able to play this whack-a-mole game with tanks against infantry. It would be almost impossible, and would require such a ridiculous amount of micro and tunnel vision that you could just like start messing around with whatever you like on the other side of the map. So it's kind of impossible for someone to do that with just tanks. So when you take a position like this, first thing you do is, especially if it's a large position like this, then you can spam infantry, but not into one blob, like unload some here, some here, some here, some here, some here, maybe some in the back as reserve, and then it'll just help you to hold the line much more successfully. There's no way this Tetrarch or Cromwell can take the IS-2 on, right? But you can ambush it, you can shoot it in the side. So all you have to do in this case, when you know your opponent is bringing a heavy tank, and you've got, you know, 3 or 4 light or medium tanks, you can spread your tanks out behind the buildings here, over here, maybe back here, and then once they come up the road, out you pop from the side, from the other side, from behind, and at least one of your tanks is probably gonna kill the IS-2. Head to head, no, you're just gonna lose. Same for this 17-pounder here, it's probably not gonna get a kill on the IS-2. This Tempest as well is not gonna get a kill on the IS-2 because its bombs are too light. If you wanted to kill the IS-2 with one of the planes 6AB has, you want to use the anti-tank rocket planes. And ideally not shoot it from the front. Maybe bring the plane in from the right side or from the left side, and then as it gets a little bit up the map, then you tell it to attack the IS-2, and it will turn and it will at least fire its rockets at the side of the tank rather than the front. Same lesson as the beginning of the game here with the Polston. Don't put them out in the open, because we see here the tank is just getting free shots, and that's going to be a free kill for your opponent. Again, with the infantry, don't blob them, spread them out into different parts. That way, at least, if there's a bomb drop or whatever happens, not all 3 will die all at once. Same here, it's very easy for one heavy bomber to send all of these squads packing. But if you spread one out over here, one into the heavy forest over here, one into the forest here as reserve, one into the building, you're going to be a bit more successful with it. This is the plane you want to use to kill tanks. Might be able to get the kill on the 85 here. Not quite. And the Willies here is out in the open. The IS-2 just might be able to spot it and kill it. Same thing for all the support weapons, or like the AA as well. The off-map units like this, just keep them behind a building where they might be safe. So if you want to off-map this area, bring it into the town here, and you can sit it somewhere like here, and it still has the range to off-map this place. If you want to off-map the town, you can do that. You can bring it down this road here into the heavy forest here where it's safe. You can still off-map the town, or you could do it alternatively somewhere like here where it can't be seen very well. This off-map is not like a super solution to everything. See here, especially this very large caliber, the 381, it only has like 8 or 9 explosions, and because of that, there's a high chance that they will miss the target. So we only use it for like built up, large build-ups of enemy units. You know, if your opponent has 15 units trying to defend this hill here, and they have infantry and tanks and whatever else, okay, it's a perfect place to use an off-map. But I think really this just represents a kind of frustration in not understanding how to kill an IS-2, which would be just by shooting it in the side. There we go, the 17-pounder got a shot in the side, bye-bye goes the IS-2. And again, over here, the same thing. Like, if you see an IS-2, you don't have to just, like, run at its face and try to fight it head-on. In fact, that's kind of what the IS-2 wants you to do, because that's what it does best, is fighting things head-on. So you can just let the IS-2 advance. I mean, your opponent doesn't have an infantry screen either. So this IS-2 is kind of blind. And we can see, it can't even see your infantry here. That's how blind it is. And so if you just let it be blind, and you have anti-tank guns, say, in the forest here, you could get some flanking shots like that. In the forest over here, some more flanking shots. If you had one here and one here, when the first one opens up and fires, if the IS-2 turns, then you can ask the other one to shoot then, and it will get the shots in the side or the rear. So how about here? Does the opponent actually have any units in here? A few. Not particularly many. So this is what you want to do, is bring infantry first and foremost and spread them out. Bring anti-tank guns, bring machine guns, and spread them out. You want the machine guns spread out to cover the open areas against infantry. You want the anti-tank guns spread out to cover the open areas against vehicles. You can also use them to cover roads. Like this position here does get a nice kind of shot down the road, for example. But you could also use a tank for that. Like right here, we see this sees all the way down this road. This is a really popular road for reinforcements to come down. If you have a Recon in the church and something here, you'll be able to shoot anything coming down the road.
We're doomed. We have men down.
I thought that was just Recon. You thought what was just Recon? These air landing were too far forwards and they get cut off. I'm sure he means anti-tank, recon, infantry. Honestly, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. If you could be more clear in saying who means what. So spread things out more, that the front line wouldn't move. And it's not only for the front line. It's just setting up this basic defensive position so that when your opponent sends something, you have something to deal with it. So you set up a screen of infantry, but not only basic infantry, you also want infantry that have anti-tank weapons. And you had that. You had the air landing, you had the glider crew, so send a mix of those. glider and air landing and the CQC Infantry if the terrain calls for it. And then support that with maybe some vehicles with anti-tank capabilities. I mean, you can see this when if you watch a replay or a commentated match of some of the good players. You'll see what they send out in deployment and what kind of units they use to do things. And they never use just like one type of unit to achieve something. They never send out a blob of 5 infantry. They will send out 2 infantry squads, 1 tank, 1 machine gun, or some kind of combination of units. And they will always try to set up this first stabilizing line so that all 12 objectives are kind of secured. And if your opponent tries to attack, you will at least be able to counterattack in some regard. But at this stage, it looks like maybe your opponent has too much of a points advantage over you. And so this is trying to stop a dam with a towel. Just the anti-tank infantry in the anti-tank tab do that. Not normal infantry squads that have anti-tank weapons. So I'll show you what I mean when this game finishes and we go have a look at the next deck. I'll show you exactly which units affect the front line and which ones don't. Okay, I think we see where this is going. And let's check the team stats. Yeah, we can see there's a very large difference in points. So when your opponent has 1,300 points more than you on the field, the game is pretty much over. I mean, even if it's 500 points, the game is pretty much over. So in this case, the game had been over for quite a while before it actually finished. So this off map got a few kills, which is nice. Tempest. The Little John with the 85 is nice. Centaur, yep, that's good. And the 6-pounder here getting 3 infantry snipes in their half tracks. M10, T34, 76 with the Tetrogs. Yeah, this was without the infantry screen to provide vision, right? The LA5FN. It's not nice. Zen Artillery. The IS-2. The other IS-2. Yeah, okay. Okay, let's look at the second deck. So when I say anti-tank infantry, I mean in the anti-tank tab, this tab. Infantry in this tab will always affect the front line. But for example, these guys, these AB Piats, these 2-man squads, actually no, this isn't going to work either because they have the Raider trait. Raiders always affect the front line anyway, I think, so that doesn't work well. Not a great example here. Anyway, normally the infantry you can find in the anti-tank tab of a division will not affect the front line. They might have Piats or Panzerschrecks or whatever, but the thing about them is they can do this kind of ambushing thing where the influence line doesn't show that they're there, and so you can keep them just hidden behind things and then maybe even just let your opponent go past them. And then when they are bringing in tanks or other things, you bring them back out to the reinforcement road or whatever, and you get those sneaky kills on the reinforcements that are coming. And that's one of the nice things that they can do. Just like the recon units don't affect the front line in the same way. So do they get any? Yeah, so for example, these AB scouts, they get the Gammon bombs. These are anti-tank grenades. And because these are recon infantry, they won't affect the front line. So they could be hiding anywhere, really. Whenever you make a big push and you make a lot of gain, territory gains with their front line being pushed, doesn't mean that your opponent doesn't have this kind of unit just hiding in buildings, ready to snipe your tanks that go past with their anti-tank grenades or whatever else they have. So that's something you always need to be thinking about. But a lot of the time, just saying a bazooka team won't impact the line. However, a squad with a bazooka will impact the line. A squad in the infantry tab. Any squads in the infantry tab, we see here the different tabs: Recon, Infantry, Tank, Support, Anti-Tank. All the units in the infantry tab here, all across this line, they will always affect the influence line. So you'll always kind of know whether they are there or not. But the Recon units, anything in the Recon tab does not affect the influence line. And the same here for the Anti-Tank. Any infantry in this tab does not affect the influence line. And that's why they can be so sneaky, and that's why you always have to imagine that they exist. Even when you can't see them, even when the influence line is really far ahead, if you have recently taken this area from your opponent and there's heavy forest or buildings there, there's a chance that your opponent managed to leave some infantry in there ready to get those sneaky ambush kills on your reinforcements that you think the area is safe, right? You're like, yeah, okay, let's just send the tanks through this town that I just took, and they start going through, and they just start exploding. And they start exploding, and you can't even see the things that are killing them because they're tanks, and tanks are kind of blind without infantry to spot for them. So that's a real issue, but also in my experience, most players don't pay attention to that idea and don't really think about it until it's used against them. Like anyone, sorry, anyone can say to you, "Oh, watch out for the anti-tank infantry," and you're like, "Yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna send my tank. See, nothing happened. It's fine. He's this guy's talking shit." But then one day, when you send your whole train of tanks through a town and you lose 500 points worth of tanks to one Panzerschreck squad, then you will be crying very, very salty tears, and you will permanently have that bad memory engraved on your brain, burnt, branded onto your mind, and then you won't forget. So like I can say it as much as I want, but really the best way to remember that is to just go join the quick play queue and have it happen to you, and then you won't forget. Another reason to have an infantry screen to clear out the recon squads waiting to ambush your tanks. Yeah, exactly. And that's part of the whole principle of having an infantry screen, is to protect your tanks from these very easy ambush kills. Because, if you look at the price of this ABP at squad, they're 15 points. And the Cromwells are 50 points. So if I can get two sneaky kills with my ABP on two Cromwells, then I'm at an 85 point advantage just from one unit. And if I can keep playing like that, I've won the game if I do that 3 times. That's almost a 300 point advantage. And any good player can win with a 300 point advantage. Like you look at the points a lot of the time, and I think a lot of the time new players look at the price of units purely in terms of, can I buy it or not? So I got 140 points this turn. Cool. I can buy 2 Cromwells and 2 infantry squads. And that's all they think about, is the price of the units. How much money do I get? Can I buy it? But really, a more advanced understanding of the game is you look at the price of a unit and then you think about, what can I kill with this unit to get those points back? If I spend 50 points on a Centaur 4, then I need to kill at least 50 points of enemy units to make that worth buying in the first place. And if you don't do that, then your opponent is winning and you are losing, essentially. 2 kills with any Piat is a great day. Yeah, I mean, they kind of have a special place in the community's heart for being a 50% anti-tank accuracy weapon, right? But I said earlier, in my experience, the accuracy is better than 50% because we have to remember that 50% is at maximum range, or this is just a standard range, and like the closer your units are to the enemy unit, this accuracy actually goes up. And even 50% is still just maybe yes, maybe no, and a lot of the time it can be yes. And if they come in at 1 vet, that goes to 57. If they have 2 vet, that's 62. And that's pretty much in your favor to be a hit rather than a miss. Anyway, let's have a look at the... So this is pretty much the same deck, except there's no charioteers. Planes, planes, planes. Again, with the Tempest and the Tempest here, you can use these light bombers for the same thing that these ones will do. And if you take them out, you get 4 activation points. Most of the time, you don't want to use a 4 activation point slot because you can get so much more use out of it. For example, instead of having one card of planes, 1 card of fighters here in A, you can get 2 more cards in Recon or Infantry or Support or even Artillery. And you know, these Flamethrowers are really nice units. You look at most good players' decks, the really good players' decks, they almost always take these Flamethrower units in the Support tab if the division has them available. Now, are you going to argue with some of the best players of the game? Or are you going to think, maybe these players kind of know what they're on about, and maybe I'll do the same thing? And if you want to know how to use these, they're generally just used as like aggressive deployment units that can also be CQC support. So like if you take one of these 15-point flamethrowers and you combine it with an air landing, and you put them together into a heavy forest, then the air landing can go first, and once it starts engaging an enemy infantry squad, you bring the flamethrower in behind it, and it's going to get that nice CQC bonus from the flamethrower, and you're more likely to win that infantry engagement then. If you only have the air landing, and your opponent has something with a grenade or a flamethrower, then, on the other hand, you lose the fight rather than winning it. So again, I would make the same changes to the infantry here. Definitely bring the engineers in B, and maybe also consider taking the flamethrowers in A as well. I would even maybe change this supply truck out for the Jeep supply in A, because most of the time you're not gonna use 4 supply trucks in a 1v1. Most of the time you're not gonna have the opportunity to do that. So instead you can bring out a supply truck, kind of, which has only half the supply, but is also only half the points and much faster, and you can have it in A. You still get 4. I mean, it's half the supply, but still 4. They're faster, available 1 phase earlier. But that's just a personal choice, I guess. Those flamethrowers are also interracial, so you are showing diversity as well. Interracial? Why do you think they're interracial? You think this is a balaclava? Okay, it's not modeled very well, but he's still, you know, this is the British division, right? 6th Airborne is like SAS. So no, I wouldn't call him interracial. Okay, so pretty much same, and the same things I said for the previous division deck building review would apply similarly here. I don't think Vanguard is the best choice for 6th AB because of the value you can get out of the planes. You need to bring more CQC infantry, and I don't think air landing and glider crew are the best things to use as line infantry because they're kind of weak. These guys are disheartened, no MG, they'll run away quite easily, they won't be able to do much damage. These guys only have 7 health. They can come at 2 vet, I would take them at 2 vet, but I would also bring something else like the AB paras, for example, 6 squads of these guys, 2 Brens, and a Piat. So multi-purpose squad, 10 health, 2 machine guns. This is a pretty solid line infantry squad. Ah, Pain Division 2. Good choice, sir. I'm just trying to help one of the new players with understanding the game. AB Paris there in A. Yeah, okay, watch. If I just take all these out, right? And what we do is we apply ourselves to this idea of Vanguard. We want to cause pain in A. We want to fuck up our opponent as much as possible in A phase because that's what our deployment income is allowing us to do, right? So we say, okay, I want some CQC infantry in A, 9 squads at 1 vet. Hell yes, I'm taking that. Oxen Bucks, we can get 6 at 1 vet or 5 at 2 vet. Hell yes, I'm taking that too. AB Paras with 1 vet, 6 squads, that's fine. With the air landing at 2 vet, 10 squads, beautiful. And we throw in a nice leader as well. Okay, this looks pretty damn nice, pretty tasty. So we need something in B phase. Let's throw the engineers in. We'll take 10 of those. We'll take these guys in B phase as well. And we'll take some more air landing. What do we say? Do we want these in B? Maybe C. Hard choice. Let's do B because if we get to C phase, we're kind of fucked anyway, right? And then C phase, we just have the backup unit that we hope we don't have to use. And then we have something that looks like this. That's what I would choose for this kind of income. Better units, stronger units, more veterancy on them, because you want to be winning fights in A as much as you can, and you win more fights by having stronger units than your opponent rather than having more weaker units. For the planes, okay, the Mosquito is always a nice choice. The light bomber is also a nice choice. This is a bit expensive, but I guess sometimes you can make it work. Sometimes you do just want that super anti-tank pew pew pew. So it can be used, and I would also take one in A, but be careful about buying it as well, is something I would say. I would take this one out, and let's throw these ones in B as well, because again, we can use these Tempest light bombers as fighters anyway, and we want to use them for that, and then we get more efficiency out of our units. So then we've got bombers and anti-tank and bombers and bomber fighters or fighter bombers as they're called, and more anti-tank. Not sure about this, but I guess if you want to do the deployment cheese, you have to bring it. It's a personal choice. 2 points left. Maybe the flamethrowers as well in A. And now we've got a real pew pew kind of A phase. We got flamethrowers, we got a bunch of CQC infantry, high vet infantry with the leaders, with the planes. Okay, the snipers is fine, and the tetrox. Okay, yeah, that seems just fine and dandy. 1 point to spare, but no big deal. That's so many planes. Honestly, I'd take the mosquito bombers out in B phase. Already plenty of other fighter bombers which are better. Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. Let's see, what have they got? They've got 613 kg bombs. These have two 227 kg bombs. Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. You could perfectly take out these mosquitoes if you want, and then you'd get 4 points left to spend. Maybe throw in the AB Jeep supply. You've got 2 more points. You could take some extra artillery. I might even take these at like 2 vet, because do you really need 5 of these things? Are you gonna use 5? 5 light howitzers? I wouldn't use 5 light howitzers. Maybe the Pathfinders. These are also really nice because they have the Recon, but they also have the Willy Pete, the nice flames grenade. You could take 2 in B, or you could even, now think about this. If we're thinking about the what would you call it, the safety plan or plan B, or we might even call it plan C because we're thinking about a long game. Like, what happens if the game kind of drags on? What if your opponent is also Vanguard and you're kind of going evenly into C phase? Then you do want some CQC Infantry in C phase as well, right? You've got the AB powers, that's more than enough line infantry, but you could be like 5 brain here, and you could bring these Pathfinders in C. That's only 9 squads, but 9 squads of CQC Infantry is still better than 0 squads of CQC Infantry in C phase. So something to consider there that you could do. That many planes may work in a multiplayer match, but seems a bit much for a 1v1 situation in my opinion. Yeah, but it's not about buying all of these planes. Just because they're there doesn't mean you buy them. A lot of the time, the part of division building or deck building is that you have things available in case you need them. So it's like you have the different tools in your toolbox, and just because I have 50 different tools in my toolbox doesn't mean I'm going to use all of them at once. I'm not going to take out the hammer to put on a tire, right? But I will need the hammer if I want to hammer something. So at least having it there means when I need it, I can use it. If I don't need it, fine, no problem. But at least it was there if I did need it. So then maybe this would be a better choice of Vanguard deployment 6th AB. So let's save that and let's go back to the replay. Let's have a look. T-Money 2. Okay. And he's blue. Same map, I think, yep. But you're on the different side this time. Now I forgot if I have the audio on or not. No music. Can turn that up. No, I remember hearing the air sirens were a bit loud last time. Okay, so some recon here. I wouldn't deploy them like, okay. Actually, where you deploy your units is pretty important sometimes. Like if you deploy them at the front here, that's opening them up. Like if we press C key here, that's opening them up to being sniped from any quick vehicle that comes down this road or even down this road, because if we look here, there, just right here is in range of where your unit will be deploying. If you instead deploy it a little bit more conservatively, like here or down the road here, and then you move it up on foot, it's still going to be able to achieve the same thing, but it's not in danger of being sniped before it even arrives. So like if we wanna apply the lessons from the what we saw in the last match, right? When we look at the map when we begin, we look at the center line, we look at the objectives that we want to defend. So there's some in the building here, a little village here. There's one here at this crossroads, one here, one here, one here, and one here. So we want to defend where the line is, which means we're going to deploy into this forest here, maybe into the buildings here, into the buildings here, maybe try to get into this light forest and forest here. We're going to deploy into these buildings. You're doing that fine. Here, yes. Here, yes. Here, yes. Maybe also here, yes. This forest here. This forest here, because that gives you a nice line of sight down this road. This forest too, for the same reasons. Maybe seeing if you can push across into this forest as well. Maybe this forest too. Maybe the edge of this forest as well, because that overlooks the road nicely. This forest, yes. This forest, yes. Maybe here, occasionally, a bit of a flex pick. This forest is also usable. And then, of course, the hill, like you are using. And you want to spread out your units. You want to have combined arms and not just one kind of unit. So in this case, like this tends to be a bit of a CQC infantry fight going on here. So I would usually bring some CQC infantry, maybe some MG here or here, maybe a tank here as well, in case any tanks come up through here, any half tracks come up through here. Did you get anything with the cheese this time? Not quite, a little bit too early. No recon plane this time, I think. Oh, did get the half track. It ran itself over the fire. How about the Dozor? Come on. Oh, it just evaporated. So close. But nice kill. Nice kill on the half track there. So the Tempest here, like, when you don't evacuate it, you can still use its guns, right? You don't... Okay, you are using it now, yeah. Maybe a half track isn't the best choice. Like, you've got the gun over here, that's a soft target. You've got the mortar here that's spotted, but there is some Zen artillery in the back. Now, if I spot Zen artillery in the back here, I think there was even 2 of them. Is that correct? Let's see. No, it was a Dushka. Okay, fine. In this case, when I see my opponent has already bought some anti-air in the back like that, generally that means that their front line is going to be weaker for it. And you can see that here. You can see that the front line is quite far ahead of your infantry. This is an opportunity to advance your infantry at least a little bit into the buildings here. And that way you're going to start holding more territory right from the start. Is this kind of aggressive mindset that you get right at the deployment phase. You look at the influence line and you see if it's really far ahead, then you take advantage of that. Okay, this is a good way to take advantage of it. These air landing, I mean, you should be using Q move here. If you'd used Q move, they would have shot at this BA-20 already, but instead they are just being shot. Oh dear. Oh dear. If the BA-20 could, it would run them over, but instead there's a Cobra coming in with missiles. Yeah, only play like 2 match 3 rounds. Oh, it gets stuff. It got like 3 squads. Really? It got 3 squads? Oh yeah, 1, 2, 2 squads. And again here with the right click, just do not use right click. If you feel your finger moving over the right mouse button, just slap yourself in the face, okay? And instead press the Q key. So this part here now, this is a collapsing front line because your line was too thin. And that's why we want to use as many cheap units as we can and spread out and not just send them out to fight immediately. Because if you had just held 1 unit in the forest here, you would be 2 objectives up rather than 2 objectives down. This is fine. I might consider having 1 air landing over here and 1 over here. The AB Canadian Paras are good at CQC. This is an open area, so this is not their forte. This is not a strong position for them. This area here with the enclosed buildings where they can't see much is a great position for these Paras. This building here is good for like an MG or something. Could also put 1 here. It covers this forest here quite nicely. Now the howitzer you can use to kill units like this, but at this range it's going to be quite inaccurate and you don't have any radio coverage over it. This howitzer does have a radio, right? See here? And because it has a radio, if you have any units with radios, like the howitzer, you see this white circle going around it, right? So if your howitzer targets anything within these white circles, the Mosquito has a radio too, we see this white circle going around the map. If your howitzer targets anything within the white radio circle, it will have better aiming and faster aiming, and it will be more accurate, and that will allow you to do more damage basically. So you want to use these along with radios. Now the other units that have radios are your leaders, like your rifle leader here. So when we click on the howitzer, we see this big circle over the town here, and that's thanks to the radio that your leader has. Also the Tetrarch Little John has one as well. So you could be using these howitzers quite nicely to pound things in this circle over here. But trying to use it to kill this thing is going to take a long time. Long time. So it's not really very effective. Now here, you send infantry alone with no anti-tank support. And so now if there's a half track or something like that, that half track will take your infantry to Pound Town. So that's why it's never just one type of unit. Never buy just 3 centaurs. It's like it's overcompensating for one problem that you have. Buy one thing to counter one thing. Try to support it with other things that will allow it to not get countered. So if you're gonna bring out a Tetrarch up here, or you're gonna bring a Centaur up this hill here. Okay, Centaurs are good at killing infantry. They are good at killing soft targets. They're not good at killing tanks. In that case, you can bring it with a Tetrarch or two. Or you can support it with an anti-tank rocket plane if you like. And then the Centaur will kill the soft targets, the tanks will kill the hard targets, and that way they complement each other, and your Centaur doesn't just go up the hill, meet something it can't beat, and just die, and then you lose those points. Instead, the Centaur goes up the hill, it meets something it can't kill, but then the tanks you brought along with it can kill that thing for it, and you can continue pushing. No, 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 no. No right-clicking. No right-clicking. Don't do that. Never do that ever again. Q move only. Some leader thing in there in between, I think. There's a leader here. Nothing in here. And we can see. If we zoom out, we can see the white circles where the radios are. So there's one here. There's some over here. There's one here. And that's it. There's no radio coverage over this side. So 3 centaurs. This is a bit overkill, especially considering 6th AB. If you bring the centaurs in A phase, you only get 3. And you can use them to really great effect. But as soon as you meet some tanks, then bye-bye centaurs. The opponent is bringing some tanks on the left side here. Now generally, we can play in a kind of reactionary way. So when you see what your opponent is bringing, you think about how you can counter that. So your opponent is bringing a bunch of tanks down here. How can you counter that? Well, you could bring some anti-tank gun over here, for example. Let's say somewhere like here, or alternatively, I mean, it's a little bit late now because they're quite fast. In this case, you might have to just use your, what do you call them? Tetrarchs. But with there being so many, it's going to be a little bit difficult to do that. But this is another case, I guess, of sometimes you don't have to, like, counter what your opponent is doing. If you have infantry in the trees here, in the trees here, in the buildings here, you could just let these tanks go right past. And because they don't have a leader, they would go past, and they would get encircled, and the influence line would go around them and would then pop, essentially, would disappear. And although those tanks would be behind your lines, they wouldn't be affecting the objectives. And so you could then just try to deal with them in your own way. Maybe put an anti-tank gun here or here. Maybe over this side, you have one here, that's good. Still should be a Q move. And these centaurs, I'm worried about these centaurs. I worry that if these tanks came over here, these centaurs would be pretty poof. This was a little bit too aggressive, but we'll see how it goes. Most units like anti-tank guns and infantry, they actually get a damage resistance bonus by staying inside a forest. So if we keep them in the forest, they can fight for longer, they can take more damage. And they also get a stealth bonus. So they can't be seen, but fortunately, your opponent doesn't really know what he's doing with these tanks, and so you're just pew-pewing away and getting the kills for free. They finally spot one of them. 2 misses. I think they're pretty much toast at this point. Okay, 1 hit on your anti-tank gun, but only 1 tank left. I think this fight is probably going to go in your favor. Is Mosquito unique as an attack aircraft with radio? It's not really an attack aircraft. It's a recon plane, or the one that has the radio for 6AB is just a recon plane. And most of the time, it's just used for two things. Like, it's used in the initial deployment for the napalm cheese, which can be very effective, but it is cheesy. Or you can also use it to kind of fly over heavy forest or towns, and it will then reveal enemy units that are hiding there. And once you know what units are there, you can then take advantage of that information. You can send heavy bombers to target certain buildings that infantry are hiding in. You can use the artillery to bombard areas where units are hiding and things like that. Usually you just use them in those two ways though. Some divisions do get some nice recon planes that have bombs or rockets or things like that though, so it's not like they're only used in those two ways, but the one that 6AB gets is generally only used like that, because that's really all it can do. So there's one centaur down. I'm not sure this is going to go very well for the centaurs. Oh, no, they got it, that's okay. Strength in numbers. Quantity is a quality all of its own. These AB powers are a little bit too far back. And so here, just having infantry spread out across the town would totally prevent this tank from advancing. At least if you have the infantry that have anti-tank weapons, just the air landing, they're very cheap. Put 3 or 4 in the buildings here, and then you can advance with the paras, the air landing go behind them. Any infantry get killed by the paras. Any tanks that try to come fight get killed by the air landing, and Bob's your uncle. Like here as well, if you had this air landing over here in this town, you would be able to just pop out here, pop, kill the M10, and pop back into the town, and that would be a very easy kill. Or do other aircraft have them? Yeah, there are lots of aircraft that have not lots of aircraft, but there are lots of divisions that have recon aircraft of many different kinds. If you want to browse, you can go to the armory tab and click on the air units and just have a scroll through all the different kinds of aircraft all the different divisions have. The napalm can work on tanks. Yep, does work there. Nice big boom. I think that might be a little bit too far back, but we'll see. Yep, fighter comes in. It's getting shot by anti-air. I'm not sure it's going to make it out, to be honest. No, that's a doomed mosquito, I think. Okay, another off map here, but I'm not sure. Does your opponent actually have many units in this area here? No. When we press neutral, we can see there isn't really anything there. Like, we want to use off map when we know our opponent has a build-up of units somewhere. If it's just one unit, or you only have sight on one unit, it's probably best not to use it, because what exactly are you getting out of this bombardment? You've made one Dushka, okay, go back, you killed one M10, and I think that's probably gonna be the scope of this bombardment, right? But these off-map artillery units are kind of expensive just to kill one M10. There is the dead centaur from anti-tank infantry. That's why we send the infantry first. That's why we need an infantry screen. Now, if your centaur can get this far ahead, right, without being shot, probably it's safe to also send infantry trucks up here and deploy into this forest here, or into this forest here as well, right? Down this road, along here, deploy and walk up. Along here, deploy and walk into the forest. And then you'll be able to more effectively contest this objective, right? This is good. Yeah, it's aggressive, but you're getting away with it. But again, there's no recon here. Like, these infantry are still in their trucks. They can't see anything. Tank can't see anything. Tank can't see anything. Anti-air is not going to see anything. Like, you are effectively blind as to what enemy units are in this area here. That should be a Q move. Don't press right click.
God, that was close.
This is too aggressive. They are going to die in their transports. Nope. Almost. Not quite.
Enemy spotted. Be ready.
But ideally, if you want to, you want to do this, deploy behind your units you already have, and then you can just Q move them up. We see you lost one in his transport there. You lost your off map because it was out in the open. Just keep it behind some buildings like this. It can still use the off map, but it's not going to get shot by things. I didn't know the Napalm Mosquito was Recon. Got it. No, the Napalm Mosquito is not Recon. There's another Mosquito that has Recon. So, Team Money brought both types in A phase, and one of the popular strategies with those planes is to bring the Recon plane out first in deployment immediately towards a very popular deployment point. So, for example, on this map, this town is always a source of strong contention. And that means the player on this side is going to use this road, guaranteed. And the player on this side is going to use this road, guaranteed. So if you send your recon plane out ahead first, you send it first, and then you bring the napalm bomber maybe 5 seconds after that. Once your recon plane spots the train of deployment units in their soft trucks, you can then click on your napalm bomber, tell it to bomb the road where they are going to be, and you can get some very tasty and rage-inducing for your opponent kills. Okay, I need to research my decks then. I mean, yes, but also, you know, it's not all just about decks. Like, there's a lot you can change in how you spend your points in the game as well. Like I said, not just buying one kind of infantry unit or just one kind of unit and blobbing them all together like this. Like, one glider crew can hold this side of the map just fine, and the other two could be sent here. Because, you know, as I've said earlier, this hill here is so strong. It's so useful. Because once you control this side of the hill here, you can control all of this territory here using anti-tank guns, anti-infantry guns, tanks, whatever you have, you can use it to control all of this territory here. And when you do that, your opponent is going to have a real hard time trying to come back into this town here, which essentially means, you know, if you control this hill, you don't only get this objective, but you also get this objective too. 2 objectives to 1, right? So that's why this hill is always so heavily contested. And again here, the blobbing up of the infantry units. A lot of the time, things like machine guns and the HE shells that this T-34-76 fire, the suppression damage that they do is not only applied to one unit, it's applied in a kind of AoE. So when you have your units all together like this, they are actually easier to suppress and pin down, because even though the T-34-76 is firing at one of them, it's actually building suppression on all 4 of them, which makes this very, very efficient for your enemy. You know, you're essentially doing their job for them by putting all your units together like this. This has to be Q move. Don't right click, please, never. I will call the police if you do that again.
I got a hit.
And again, the rocket barrage, just clumping them together like this, makes the rocket barrage very, very effective. Now this is great use of Cqc Infantry to clear a forest, and this is probably going to go very, very well for you. Looks like it will encounter something soon, judging by the influence line. Yep, there we go. There's the Zen artillery, and poof, Very, very nice. Easy kill. And you might even take this objective now as well. Wonderful. Look at that. You might get two. Yep. There you go. Now, if you'd kept one infantry unit in a building here, you'd also be controlling this one. You know, just an air landing unit here is enough, especially in the center building here where they can't be seen, is enough to hold the objective. And also, any vehicles that go down this road will actually be in range of the air landing's Piat, and it will be able to fire missiles at them as they try to go past. Just acknowledging that I don't know enough about this deck to make assumptions. Yeah, I mean, Steel Division 2 is a really complex game, and learning what all the different divisions do and how they do it and what they're good at and what they're not good at is homework. You know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of studying, to be honest. And before you know those things, when you play against people who do know them, you will notice very quickly that they know these things and you don't, because they will be wrecking your shit. Nice Zuchok kill there with the Tempest. Can the Tempest get away? Ooh, no. So again here now, these units are getting encircled because there's nothing to defend here, nothing holding this objective. So your opponent sent some tanks down the road here, and they were totally uncontested. Now fortunately, the Oxen Bucks have this nice trait, Raider. And that means that they will still be able to produce their own kind of influence bubble around themselves, even when they get surrounded like this. So for 6th AB, it's not actually like such a big deal. But in terms of like general principles of how you want to play the game, it's not a good way to play the game. So the Little Johns versus the Valentine 3. Money is on the Little Johns. Poof poof. Yep, there we go. Got away with it. Anti-tank gun out in the open, not the best choice. This could still do the same job it's doing now from this forest, or alternatively from this forest here. And it would have extra stealth, extra damage resistance from being there. It would be able to get the ambush. Out here in the open, well, you see, it's been spotted, and so your opponent is already kind of bombarding it with artillery. Once it's suppressed, then any tanks that come down here, it won't be able to shoot at them. So, you know, keeping your things to yourself in some ways is an advantage you want to have. Please stop this. Please Q move. If there's anything you take from this, it is that you will press Q move and never right click ever again. Never, never, never. Okay, here comes the IS-2. Yep, and still it's quite what do you call it? Imbalanced. Like, it's so much infantry on this side and so little infantry on this side. Just spreading them out into the key locations, like this one Oxen Bucks in the forest here is holding this objective all by itself, you know, and it's gonna be hard to make this Oxen Bucks go away unless your opponent also sends some CQC infantry into this forest specifically here. And so that's why it can be so effective. And again, if you put one infantry unit into this forest here, one infantry unit at the bottom of the ridge here, and we see, so just at this ridge here, it wouldn't be seen, and you'd be able to move it up into the forest here, also affecting the influence line. And it's just an easy way to maintain some kind of stability, so that even then, if your opponent sends 7 T-34 76s rushing down this road, well, they won't be able to kill the Oxen Bucks here, and they won't be able to spot the infantry in the forest here, and they'll go through here, and their influence line bubble will get encircled, and they'll lose their influence line, and they won't be able to affect any of the objectives here. So really their only use will be in combat. And it's not purely combat that makes you win the game. You have to hold the objectives to make the bar tick down, right? But overall now we can see that this is a win already. There's very little chance that your opponent is going to push out of this small space here and come back in any meaningful way. He is balanced though, so he is getting quite a lot more points than you. But I mean, just judging by the amount of units on the field, we can see who the winner is. So let's just finish it off.
Prepare for fight.
And this time, it is you with the 1,300 point or even 400 point lead on your opponent. And, like I said, we could see that on the map. Hello, Qq Taser. So let's see. Kills, Tempest. Got a couple of three playing kills. That's very effective. I think these Cobras are like 120 points, right? The Zuchok is 80? I don't know. Anyway, that's at least 300 points of kills. That paid itself off. That's nice. Mosquito. Yeah, okay. That also paid itself off. Centaur here. I'd say that's about even. 6-pounder. Yeah, okay. That's good. This glider crew. What is with this glider crew and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Saperi kills? I didn't see that, but great job, glider crew. So the Centaur here with the T-34-76, 1 kill is basically even. That's fine. Okay, some kills here, even with the Zen Art kill as well. And the Daimler Little John with the IS-2 kill. Ouch. Very ouch. T-34-85, got a couple of infantry kills. Now, like, this is like 30 points, 60 points, 15 points, 75 points. T-34-85 Komroti costs like 110 points. So although it did do something, it didn't actually kill enough things to pay itself off. So you could even still consider this to be a loss for the T-34-85. And again here, the same with the M10, the Tetrarch and the Tetrarch Little John. I think together they might cover the cost of an M10, just about. Katyusha with the 4 air landing kills, because they were all clumped together, right? So it makes it super easy for a rocket barrage to just do something like that. And that's why ideally we don't clump together. Yeah, actually it's not that longer a kill list. It's an artillery, yeah, with 4 plane kills. You could see that even right from the start of the match, your opponent had that anti-air at that back part of the town, right? So then, if you know it's there, you can kind of try to work around it, right? And you can imagine this kind of net in your head. So there's a red zone where you know the anti-air is, but then in that kind of U shape around it, you can consider yourself free to operate your planes. And then when you are using your planes, if you are chasing another plane, you can chase within your U, but if you're heading towards the red zone, then you want to kind of turn around and not get shot down. Yeah, I'd say not much else to say about this. The IS-2s here did get kills, but that is bad efficiency, very, very bad efficiency. IS-2 is 1943. It's about 200 points each, right? So a 200-point tank killing a 50-point tank is not enough to pay itself off, and the same again here. And that's why most of the time, most players who play 1v1 seriously, will not buy an IS-2 because like you would have to kill 5 Cromwells in this example. You would have to kill 5 Cromwells with your one IS-2 just to pay it off, just to get the same points back, right? It's not going to be that easy to kill 5 Cromwells unless you are like really, really much better than your opponent, in which case, if you're so much better than your opponent, do you need the IS-2 to kill those Cromwells in the first place? Could you not just do it a different way with cheaper units anyway? So these heavy tanks are like a noob trap. Like when we when we first start playing Steel Division and learning about it, everybody I think gravitates either to the King Tigers or to the IS-2s, and they think, yes, heavy tanks, super frontal armor, I will never lose now. And then they get shot in the side by a Daimler Little John or a Tetrarch Little John and die, and they realize that they're not so as invincible as they thought, and the points cost really sets you back when that happens. So actually, the heavy tanks are like an advanced unit for very experienced players, at least in 1v1. Like if you play 10v10, you always have your allies covering for you, right? So then it's easy or easier to use these super expensive units because usually your allies will have anti-air to stop them from getting bombed. Usually your allies will have infantry already screening for you. And so a lot of the things that you need to use these heavy tanks effectively is already done for you. So you can use them effectively. But using them in 1v1, you have to supply all the components to make them effective. And all the components for making an IS-2 effective, for example, would be, let's say, at least 3 infantry squads ahead of it, and at least 2 anti-air units behind it, along with the IS-2. So we've got 220 points, and then we've got the 2 anti-air units, and that's bringing you up to 160 points. So you've got 380 points, and then you've got the infantry squads, so you're up to, let's say, 450 points just to use one tank. Just to use one tank. And so in A phase, if you're Vanguard, you get 140 points per minute. That means you're waiting 3 minutes and you're spending 3 minutes worth of income for one tank that will be in one location, and all the rest of the map is going to be completely neglected while you are trying to build up this force so that you can actually use the heavy tank effectively. And if you don't, support it in that way, then without the anti-air, it's gonna get bombed. Bye 200 points. If you don't have the infantry screen, it's gonna get panzer shreked. Bye 200 points. And so like it's really hard to use. It's so expensive to use in the right way in 1v1. And that's why good players generally just choose not to use it and they bring the cheaper tanks instead. So maybe consider that next time you want to bring an IS-2 in 1v1. Maybe just don't put it in the deck. Okay, so we are now done for today. So I hope that helped. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I think I'm gonna go. So for everyone that came and followed and everything else, thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. And if you want any replays reviewed, feel free to ask. I'm on the Discord for bootcamp. But for now, that's bye from me. See you next time.